passing lane. Sky's a jam. Dynamite dunk and the crowd loves it.
Welcome back to Pistons Intellect, your home for the most informed Detroit Pistons news and analysis. I'm your host, Jack Kelly. You can follow me on Twitter at Jack_Kelly_313. And before we get into today's show, if you're feeling so kind, please hit that subscribe button. Today, we'll be reviewing the Detroit Pistons' 116-125 loss to the New Orleans Pelicans. Let's get to it. I want to note that I'm just going straight off the cuff this episode. I don't really have any notes. I'm pretty much recording about an hour after the game. So I've had a chance to kind of reflect on a few things, but largely I'm still running this episode off emotion, and there's probably going to be a little bit of frustration, but I'm going to try be level-headed here and give some decent analysis and some things to think about. But I wanted just to start with kind of a recap of the game. I also want to note I missed the first quarter of this one due to some scheduling stuff. I'm not going to have a chance to go back and watch that. But I think from what I saw in the second quarter of this one up until the half, the Pistons kind of came out short of legs. Might have been playing a little bit gassed. I saw Cade had the 3 fouls early in the second. So it looked like he had a decent start. I think he had 10 points and was shooting it kind of efficiently. But those 3 fouls kind of took him out of the game. And the Pelicans capitalized and were up by as many as, I think, at 25 or something in the first half. And CJ McCollum was just having his way with Detroit, whether it was Jaden Ivey defending him, whether it was Asar Thompson, whether it was Killian Hayes. He had 25 points at the half, and yeah, he was cooking. And then another guy who I feel like since I've been a Pistons fan, Jonas Valanciunas has always dominated the Pistons. And we're going back to the Andre Drummond days when Jonas was with the Raptors and he would just destroy the Pistons in the post. And once again, he had a huge game. He had 23 points, 15 rebounds, 5 assists and 3 blocks. He was even hitting threes, finished with a game high plus-minus of plus 20. And honestly, the Pistons got back into the game late in the third when he picked up his 4th foul, but he was a player of the game for me. Jalen Duren had a really frustrating night with fouls, couldn't really get it going. Only played the 25 minutes, and yeah, he, for as strong and physical as JD can be, he looked like 19 years old tonight against Valanciunas, who's just a mountain of a man. And I mean, even when Stu's just too undersized for a 7-footer like Valanciunas, especially one as skilled as Valanciunas, like a guy that can just back you down and shoot over the top. I think you're just asking too much of Stu there, and I'm not defending Stu. He did fumble a couple of key rebounds, which led to some Matt Ryan threes, which were killers. But yeah, Valanciunas was the player of the game for me. He kind of just controlled everything, and the Pistons just had no answer, frankly. And I sort of alluded to him then, but Matt Ryan, 20 points, 6 of 8 from 3. And then Herb Jones chips in with 21 points and 7 combined blocks and steals. Just a tough game for the Pistons, particularly in the first half, to come out in the second over back-to-back and just not have the energy. There were some positives, though, and the Pistons did outscore the Pelicans in the second half, 67-53. Like I said, they made a really good run to close the third quarter to get it back under 10 points. Jaden Ivey played a hand in that. He had a key block and sort of took it down the other end for some free throws. Had a transition dunk. And I'm going to get to him in a minute, but the really bright spot from tonight's game was Marcus Sasser. 19 points, all in the second half. 5 of 8 from deep. Had a steal and a dunk. He was terrific. And, I mean, last game he was really solid. He had 8.6 assists against the Bulls. The Trailblazers. And, yeah, he looks ready to go. I mean, I don't know how this rotation works if the Pistons get to the point being fully healthy, but honestly, the way he shoots the ball and the way he can handle the ball and sort of get downhill a little bit, he's obviously only around the 6 foot height mark, but so he's not going to be a deadly sort of guy in the paint and draw contact, but he has a pretty mid-range game, and I feel like he has a way of collapsing the defense a little bit and can take some ball handling pressure off Cade. But yeah, just Cade kicked it to him a couple of times just for wide open threes, and the Pelicans went to a 2-3 zone or a 3-2 zone there, and Sasser really was the zone buster for the Pistons because he was hitting those open threes that the Pelicans were willing to live with. And yeah, terrific game from him. And although, yeah, like I said, he's a bit undersized, he's still got a really lengthy wingspan and can make things happen defensively, to the point where he might get targeted sometimes, but I feel like he's gritty enough to sort of at least not be a complete negative on defense. And I'm going to keep more of a keen eye on him defensively because at the University of Houston as a senior, he was excellent. So he's got really good defensive chops and awareness to become a great, I guess, defender, particularly if he's going to be coming off the bench against other bench, I guess, guards. But yeah, just a fantastic game for him, and he really got the Pistons back to within around 7 or 8 points and looked really good. And the other guy I want to give some love to was Killian Hayes. I've always kind of gotten to the point where with Killian that I will give him props when he plays well, and I mean I'm kind of out on Killian Hayes as the starter, but I still see the flashes, and while I'm not really in agreement with him starting, I think tonight, putting all that aside, he was key in that last quarter with his defensive efforts, and he shot the ball well. He had 10 points, 4 of 8 shooting, and he had the 9 assists too. So Killian did what he could. I don't think anyone tonight can be mad at Killian for his performance. I think if anything, that frustration as a fan should be directed at Monty Williams, and because he's the one who's making these adjustments, I think Killian played a good enough game. I still have issues with the way he plays, and I will get to these in a minute. Not so much with Killian in a vacuum, the player, but the way he plays and complements, or the lack of things he complements Cade with on offense, which I'm going to get to in a minute. But I think it's hard to come out and say Killian Hayes was the reason the Pistons lost. I thought his defense on CJ was good in that last quarter, and he did everything he could, and I think that's one of the better games he's played this season. So just want to give a bit of love to Killian because I know he's someone who gets bashed quickly and sometimes unfairly. And yeah, I'm by no means a massive fan of him being in the starting lineup, but I think tonight he played a solid game and helped the Pistons really get back into this in the second half. The next topic I want to discuss is around Jaden Ivey, and I think tonight's game was kind of a little bit of a tipping point, at least for the fan base. I think many, including myself, thought potentially a starting lineup change might have been coming, but clearly Monty wants to stick with his starting 5 for the moment, and I'm okay with that. What is starting to bother me a little bit is Jaden Ivey continually only playing around 20 to 22 minutes when I think there's spots in the game he could really help this team. And tonight, he had 12 points, 7 rebounds, 4 of 6 from the field in 22 minutes. And he'd played 19 minutes up until the end of the third quarter. Only got the 3 minutes in the fourth. Now, this is tricky because Sasser and Killian played a big part in Detroit's fourth quarter comeback and them being in the game. So I'm not necessarily bashing or having a go at Monty's rotations in the fourth, but I think there is more spots earlier in the game to get Jaden in. I believe he checked in some of my notes here. Jaden checked in at around the 4:50 minute mark of the third quarter, and Sasser was the first guy in off the bench. And this is I think Jaden Ivey, and once he got into the game, he really helped the Pistons get it back to within reach of around that 10 to 12 point margin after it being around 20 for much of that third quarter. So the thing the reason I think Jaden needs to play has nothing to do with Killian Hayes sucking. It has nothing to do with Killian Hayes as much as more of an issue I have with the starting lineup of Cade, Killian and Sasser all struggling to kind of finish at the rim. And what I mean by that is Jaden Ivey in limited minutes, around 20 minutes a game, is shooting 14 of 20 at the rim. So he gets into the paint and he can finish, and because he's athletic, because he puts a defense he bends the defense and puts pressure on him, he's able to draw fouls some of the time. Like tonight, 4 free throws in 22 minutes. Like, if you look at Killian Hayes in 6 games, and I would bet more minutes played than Jaden Ivey, he's taken 5 shots at the rim and hasn't made one. So not only is he not spacing the floor because defenses can collapse, but when he gets the ball, he's just dribbling to that mid-range all the time, or he's missing the 3. And he shot the 3 well tonight, 2 of 4, but largely Killian is a poor 3-point shooter. So he doesn't get to the rim, he doesn't get fouls. And I just think that puts so much, and we're seeing Cade in these last quarters gassed because he's got to generate every paint touch for this team. That's why he's efficient. He'll play well, he'll be efficient, and then gets to the fourth quarter and he's jacking up 6 to 9 shots and only making 2 or 3 because they're all mid-ranges, and there is so much load on him to make everything happen. And this is where, even like when you play Alec Burks, like he's only taken 5 shots at the rim in 4 games. Excellent 3-point shooter. But once again, you're asking Cade to make everything happen inside the paint. Marcus Sasser, limited minutes, 9 shots at the rim in 6 games. And then Asar Thompson, he's getting to the rim. He's 20 of 39 at the rim, which is a decent clip. But we've seen him struggle to finish. And frankly, I think at times a lot of his shots at the rim are coming off cuts in transition. I don't think as much are coming in the half court because his handle's still a little bit loose. So once again, and I don't think Jaden, he needs to improve as a finisher around the rim, but just his first step puts pressure on the defense. And that is why I think the combination of him and Cade is so brilliant, because they complement each other so well. And that is what's frustrating me the most, because we can talk about Cade not getting to the line, not getting fouls, but there is so much pressure on him to create everything in the paint, particularly in the last quarter when Jaden Ivey's sitting on the bench. It just, to me, that's what's frustrating me. Not so much the fact Jaden's not starting, but I think he can be helping Cade so much down the stretch of these games when you can tell Cade's cooked and he's got to settle for mid-range shots and just 3-point shots that, frankly, I think the Pistons can be getting much better looks if they surround him or just give him a backcourt partner who can take some pressure off him and generate some real paint touches and get to the line. So that's kind of been the big thing for me with Jaden, and why I want to see him either starting or just playing more with Cade. I feel like I get there might be some part of the team that wants to give him more reps on ball, but honestly, when he's out there with Sasser, it feels like Sasser handles the ball just as much, if not more. And then when he's playing with Killian, it feels like Killian's handling the ball. So, I mean, yeah, that's been my one major gripe. And now that I've looked up some numbers, I mean, Cade's shooting 20 for 50 at the rim. That is really, really low. And I think some of that's due to fatigue. Some of that's due to not getting foul calls. But some of that's just due to the fact he's just not a great finisher at the rim, because he's a below the rim guy. And sometimes his touch around the rim just hasn't been probably where it needs to be. Like, he had a couple of another easy misses tonight. So I think Jaden, I just need to see him more alongside Cade. That, for me, the starting thing is frustrating, but I just want to see Jaden alongside Cade, because I really think some of Cade's poor sort of efficiency in the last quarter is a byproduct of him just being gassed. And we have to remember he was out for a year. Yes, he's had training camp, but nothing can prepare you for the real thing. And it doesn't help the Pistons have played 2 sets of back-to-backs in their first 6 games and are about to play a second set of back-to-backs against 2 of the title favourites in the Warriors and Suns. But yeah, as much as I think Ivy should be starting over Killian Hayes, this isn't about me saying Killian sucks, get him out completely. I think he's shown flashes. I kind of like that Monty is making a point of emphasis to empower players that play defense, but I think in the last quarter, when Cade's looking gassed, he needs to be supported by a player like Jaden Ivey who can get to the rim and help generate Cade some open looks. How many times have we seen Cade in the last quarter just dribbling around in circles, mid-range, or he's got a pump fake up and under? Like, it looks really hard out there for him. And especially when he can't get that pick and roll connectivity going with Jalen Duran, that offense looks really stagnant. So, I mean, I haven't seen a whole heap of the 0.5 offense of late, it feels like, especially in the last quarter. To me, it feels like a lot of Cade dribbling in circles, trying to find creases. And I think Jaden Ivey can help a lot with that. So that is kind of my stance on the Jaden Ivey thing. I don't know what's really going on behind closed doors. We saw Jaden Ivey's dad tweet out something yesterday, alluding to some frustration. But yeah, I think Jaden Ivey should be playing more in the fourth quarter. I'll leave it at that because, yeah, Cade is looking tired a lot of the time. And there's no one else out there who can make his life easier offensively, in my opinion. So I'm going to leave it there for today, guys. A bit of a quicker episode. We'll be back, though, for each of the back-to-backs coming up. There's Sunday against the Phoenix Suns. And then I'll be also back for a Monday recap of the game against the Warriors. So until then, please hit that subscribe button. Let me know your thoughts below. Until then, go Pistons.
Who does?